Well, hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another episode here of Cattle and Crops here on the Grizzly Bear Sims YouTube channel. Just as a reminder, I believe this is episode number 5 and for mission number 5, and we are in the early access release version of 0.1.01. So 0.1.0.1, I guess is how I should say that. So we have a new mission here, and it is called Feed 'em to Grow Them. So I'm sort of guessing that this is going to be about feeding our animals, hopefully. So let's go ahead and get right into this mission. Now, this mission is going to introduce us to the Kloss front loader arms 100, as well as the Brussels and Lade type S bucket there. So we're going to go ahead and get started with this mission and let it load up there in real time for you all to see. Things load up pretty quick here, I've got to say. I'm quite impressed with the speed that the game loads up and everything. Of course, no mods available or no mods installed in the game. There are a few mods I think that are available for the game, but I have not begun to experience any of those as of yet. So now we need to head back to the main farm, more or less, to be able to, and I just want to make sure that my controls are all working correctly, and they are. So cool thing was I was able to get my joystick, and I have the Logitech Extreme Pro 3D joystick that I often use for Farm Sim, and I have it configured and working quite nicely with, come on, where are we going? Don't we turn here, folks? I thought we turned there. Yep, there we go. Okay, the GPS has caught up now. Anyway, I've got the Logitech Extreme Pro 3D joystick, and it works just fine, getting it all configured and everything, pretty much the same as you do in Farm Sim 17, as far as getting it all configured and programmed. The best piece of advice that I can give you for programming your joystick or your controllers is to make sure that while you're configuring them, in other words, while you're basically setting them up within the game itself, that you have any other controllers that you're not planning to use for cattle and crops or farm sim as far as that goes. Anything that has a programmable access to the controller itself, that you have those disconnected from your PC while you're doing the configuration of those controllers for whatever game you want to utilize them with. So in this case, cattle and crops, just disconnect everything else. And if you're like me, if you do a little bit of flying, or if you have other controllers that you use for other types of games, but you don't typically use those for farm sim, like throttles and stuff like that you use for flight sim, just disconnect those while you're doing the configuration. Once you get the configuration done and saved in the game and everything, then you can go ahead and reconnect those other controllers. I like to keep my controllers all connected. I don't like to disconnect the controllers, because oftentimes what I have found is that if you have a controller that's disconnected when you launch a game that you want to use that controller for, a lot of times it will overwrite some of the settings and everything. So and then you kind of have to go back through and reconfigure them. So I'm going to be now I will just kind of say for the record that even though I have my Logitech 3D Pro Extreme 3D Pro joystick configured for Farm Sim 17, I almost rarely ever use it, simply because unless I'm going to do an entire chore or an entire task where I'm using front loader kind of controls and stuff, I will often just opt to use the mouse to lift the control arms, or lift the bucket, or lift the pallet forks, or the bell forks, whatever the case might be. I'm not sure if and I certainly didn't see anything when I was playing around with the settings and everything where you could essentially use the mouse to control your lift, your pallet forks, or in this case we're going to be playing and experimenting with the manure, or with the silage bucket, or a bucket of, I don't think it's specific for anything. It's just going to be a bucket. But anyway, I didn't see where you could do that. I'm sure you could probably program it, but considering that the options are a little different, I opted not to do that, and so we are going to use the joystick for this. And so kind of as a result of that, the joystick is kind of, in my case, is responsible for okay, had just a little bit of a controller glitch there, but everything is working okay now with my setup. It's not, I mean, it's not foolproof. It's not, it's not 100%. The game is still in early access, as I have said many times, and so as I will probably continue to say, the game is in early access, so there will be problems. There could be problems and what have you. So let's go ahead and raise the bucket up just a little bit there so we don't drag that over the dirt and worry about scooping up the cat or anything in it. So now we need to drive over close to the silage silo. So we have these silage bunkers or silage pits located over here to the left of our farm. I will just point out that you see that our corn is starting to grow over there in those fields. We planted that corn in the previous episode, and so that's pretty cool. So we can just pull up right here, and we're going to go ahead and detach the Vertimix, the mixing wagon, and then this way we can go ahead and start scooping some silage. So silage is a little bit different color here in the game than it is in Farm Sim 17, and I just need to move my mouse over to the other side of my setup here so that I can control the camera a little bit with the mouse, and then of course I'm using the joystick to control my bucket. And let me just lift that up and let me tilt the bucket down just a little bit and then lower it down, and then we'll scoop up our first scoop of silage. So as you can see there on the right hand side, it is scooping up. There we've got 1,200 or 1,140 out of 1,200 liters. I guess we spilt a few liters of silage as we were messing with our bucket there. I'm not going to worry about closing it down. It doesn't tend to make any difference there. Our dog, the interesting thing about our dog that I noticed when I was doing the sort of the practice mission for this is the interesting thing about the dog is that I guess the dog is similar to a vehicle in the sense that there's a collision. I'm assuming that there's a collision on the feeding wagon there. I would assume that there would be. There should be anyways. And as a result of that, let me just even our bucket out here, drop our bucket down, and I guess there's a collision on it. So I noticed this in the other episode that I did. Let me move the camera. It's a lot of things to have to do here, and of course I'm trying to control the camera with my left hand, and I'll tell you what, let me give up on that because that's just going to drive both of us crazy, you watching it and me trying to maneuver the camera with my left hand. I am right hand dominant, and well, as a result of that, I can't do much with my left hand as far as fine maneuvers and stuff like that. But anyway, I guess there's a collision on the trailer. So the dog, and I noticed this, like I said, when I did this mission on my other profile, the dog just kind of comes up to that point and stands there as if he wants to proceed, but he can't. And then eventually he will go ahead and move once we move the mixing wagon out of the picture. So this mission is pretty much just about what we're doing right here. It's going to be just loading up the mixing wagon for a few more. I think it takes about 5 or 6 buckets of silage to fulfill the mission requirements. Oops. There we go. And we'll back up. And I guess the reason why, unless I'm doing something that requires a whole lot of maneuvering, where the joystick is kind of a benefit. Because I guess because there's, you need to be able to move the camera, pan the camera around and stuff like that. And I guess within Farm Sim, it's just a lot easier for me to do that with the mouse, because as long as I don't click the mouse, and obviously it doesn't change anything. But I'm a little rusty with the controls. But I will tell you that, if you've got everything kind of configured and everything working with joysticks, it certainly makes logging and things like that much easier to do with the joysticks. And if you can kind of figure out a camera angle that kind of works best, that allows you to kind of see all the action. And of course, I'm always concerned about, well, what can you guys see, making sure that you guys can see all the action well enough as we run into the side of the trailer there. Try to get in the habit of maneuvering some of this stuff at the same time that I'm driving. And we'll get another load of it's referring to this as maize chaff. So that's interesting. Anyway, this might be one of the last buckets here that we've got to load. And of course, once we get this loaded up, and we're not gonna fill it all the way up, so don't worry about that. This would be kind of a slow process. But once we get it filled, then it'll give us the next step of the mission to complete. And of course, that's going to be to take this over to the cows and feed the cows. So I'm guessing just part of the mission elements, we do have some cows. Turning the bucket the wrong way again. Let me do it that way and lift it up. And I'm guessing if I were to actually close, the grapple there, we wouldn't lose some of it. But I need to just get used to that, I guess. And I think one more bucket will do it. And we'll go ahead and close the grapple down and see if we can make this. See, even that wasn't 100%. But even Farm Sim 17 has that little glitch about itself that is hard to get 100% in the bucket. I think it somewhere ends up around 99 or 98%. So maybe that's what we've got working over here. All right, so we have fulfilled the steps of the mission so far. And I will just also say that, because again, I sort of think that, and I mean no disrespect to the development folks behind Cattle and Crops, but I sort of think that, get the impression that third-party controller support is a little bit of an afterthought with the game. And so there is some issues with the fact that sometimes your controls are a bit opposite, would be how I could describe that maybe. So let's back up here just a little bit and get that as a screenshot. And we'll come back around here. We'll turn our HUDs on and put ourselves in forward gear. And I'll back the camera up, and you'll see the dog is patiently waiting. And then as we move on out of the way, the dog will go ahead and continue his circuit. And I guess he just does this throughout the day. So that's kind of cool, and that may tell us that unlike in Farm Sim 17, and it was the case for 15 as well, where animals just kind of would walk through your tractor or walk through your tanker or whatever it was, I guess maybe they might not do that in this game. That maybe they recognize the fact that it's something there, it's a collision. And so we need to activate our mixing wagon. We forgot to do that. And now we are driving to the barn entry. And we're going to go ahead and unload and press U. And we are unloading our content out of our mixing wagon. And I think we're pretty much okay to go ahead and drive forward. And my apologies for not showing that. But one thing that I did notice in the practice is while it simulates that it's emptying the contents out of the mixing wagon, it basically nothing ever leaves the mixing wagon. It still appears to be full. So again, I think that's just possibly part of the mission stuff. So that's okay. Can't do anything about that. There's our cows. You can get a close-up of the images of the cows there. Perhaps not the prettiest of cows that I've seen, but at least they're a little bit different from your typical Farm Sim 15 or 17 cows. Maybe they'll continue to make those guys look a little better as we proceed through the game development. Okay, and we've exited the barn here. So our mission, I believe, is done. So we will go ahead and click OK. And we will say not now for the next mission, because we're just basically doing one mission per game. And then I think what I'll do is I'll just take and park this right over here, because I'm not sure what the next mission is going to be. We'll find that out together the next time that we come back together for another video. I hope that you've enjoyed this. My apologies for being a little bit clumsy with the controls, but as I had sort of mentioned, for the reasons that I mentioned, unless I'm doing a whole lot of work where I need the joystick, I typically don't use it in Farm Sim. I just find that it's just as easy to use the mouse. But anyway, we will go ahead and continue to trudge through these missions together. And good to see that our corn is growing over there. I'm sure that I'm hopeful that we'll have a harvest mission or something so we can see how all that works, maybe some fertilization missions, so that we can sort of play around with that as well. So again, until next time, thanks for hanging out with me here on Cattle and Crops, or over on Thornton Farm or Midtown USA with Farm Sim 17. I enjoy bringing you the content from both game platforms, from both simulation-based game platforms. And please remember to take good care of yourselves and each other. And God bless you all. And come and hang out with me on Discord if you have questions or comments. I'm there most every day for chat anyways. So take care, and I'll speak to you the next time we come together. Bye-bye.